Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. As we gather here this morning under the limitations of the provincial declaration of emergency, I want to thank Council for making themselves available to come to the meeting. For members of the public that are watching, today's meeting is closed to members of the public in attendance. We have allowed the media to attend to report on today's events. We've also are live streaming today's meeting, and it is recorded for people to go back to afterwards. As I said, we have limited staff in attendance to minimize it, and Council has taken the steps to practice the social distancing that's required at this time. But I want to thank everyone for their patience and cooperation as we take the actions today that are necessary for the City of Belleville. I'll note that we are all in attendance, and I'll ask the City Clerk to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to ask Council for consent to suspend the procedural bylaw provisions to allow for all the business conducted this morning to be done without going into committee of the whole, and also to dispense of the formality of standing during that portion of the meeting. Councillor Thompson? Oh, sorry, you're in favor? Thank you. Everyone consents? Thank you very much. Item 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I haven't had advice on this. That's the only reason I'm taking. I don't think I have any, but I'm going to take one for 8A4 just to be abundantly cautious, and that's the voluntary collection of Airbnbs.
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor McCaw.
Again, out of an abundance of caution, I'll take one on 8A3.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Sanderson.
So it's not a conflict, but I just wanted noted that on items 8B1 and 8B2 concerning Settlers Ridge, I live in Settlers Ridge.
Declaration of interest then. Thank you. Anyone else? And I also have a conflict on 8A3 dealing with the lease with for the Myers Pier and Patio. I own a competing business. Item number 4, we don't have public meetings. There are no minutes today for confirmation. There are no deputations. And so we'll move to item number 7, which is correspondence. And we have a letter of non-objection from the Belleville Downtown Improvement Association for food trucks for Alzheimer's Society Barbecue at Market Square. And I need a resolution that the provisions contained in Schedule J of bylaw number 2006-140, a bylaw to license, regulate, and govern certain businesses that prohibits refreshment vehicles from operating within the downtown business improvement area, be waived for the Alzheimer's Barbecue at Market Square being held on Sunday, May 31st, 2020. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Carr. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. The next item is a letter from the Royal Canadian Legion, Belleville Branch 99, and I need a resolution that the letter from the Royal Canadian Legion, Belleville Branch 99, requesting assistance with relocation be received. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 8A, reports. The agenda shall include, the agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from Council. We'll start with item 8A1, delegation of authority, acts related to finance and planning. Director of Corporate Services, Clerk's Report number DCS 2020-16. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services, Clerk's Report number DCS 2020-16, a bylaw to approve the delegation of authority to the Chief Administrative Officer or their designate for a period of 90 days or until such time as Council rescinds the delegated authority for matters related to purchasing and planning approvals be prepared for Council's consideration, and that the CAO or their designate report to Council on any and all actions undertaken under this delegated authority. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Director McDonald, I wonder if you can give a brief overview of this in layman's terms, because there will be members of the public who will be uncertain of what this act implies and allows the CEO or their designate, just so people are understanding what we're here to consider.
Thank you. Through the chair to all of council and obviously for the public. The delegation of authority in this instance is a temporary delegation of authority in exceptional times. It's consistent with what other municipalities have currently undertaken. Some municipalities have standing delegations of authority of this nature. What's being delegated is purchasing approvals to allow the CAO or their designate, because the CAO is as likely to be ill as anybody else, so there needs to be backup for that individual, to approve the financial operations of the municipality and that they're able to continue, so continuity of operations. Additionally, there is signing authority that comes with that to execute agreements. That generally is between the mayor and the clerk, so that would be with the CAO or their designate and myself, the clerk, or obviously the deputy clerk. It also includes some planning provisions, so that planning applications that may continue to come to the city are able to be processed in a timely fashion as per provincial legislation that, regardless of the provincial emergency declaration, are still in standing. So these are consistent actions that have been taken by other municipalities under the current provincial declaration of emergency, and given our circumstances, province and nationwide. So we're not doing anything that anybody else isn't doing. We're just ensuring that in the event that council is unable to hold meetings on a regular basis, that the operations of the municipality are able to continue.
All right, thank you. My colleagues, any questions or comments on the resolution? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through your worship. And, I can certainly understand what situation we're in all municipalities, as Matt, you've mentioned. I think I'm approving this wholeheartedly, just in the understanding that we're still going to be meeting as often as possible as a council, that our committees will still be operation. We have, a big crisis. We know this. We have to be calm and make sure that we are going through things as calmly as we can, but at the same time, there's a lot of things happening really quickly. This week, with a survey that I had put out on business impact, and about 216 surveys back, indicated that there is a big concern and a lot of fast-moving parts in terms of the business world and how they're looking at this crisis and what's happening in our city and in our region and our country. And a lot of that is looking at how to keep employees. A lot of that is how they're going to have help from the federal and provincial governments and what they're announcing. A lot of that's going to be in terms of what can we do as a municipality. And I just want to ensure that when we have these powers changed, that we're not going to stop as long as we can meeting as a council and being able to still be leaders in this community and make sure that we're able to do as much as we can. I think we need to do a lot more, not a lot less at this point. So as long as that is still going to be intact, as long as it can, absolutely, we need to get more powers also to the CAO so he can operate in the city and do things that we can't do. When I look at things like the operation budget, we've had to cancel things we have to cancel all over the city. That does impact our city and our citizens, but also council, and we have to be able to come back and meet more often and be able to make more decisions. Things like, are we going to be able to do a tax increase at all this year? Are we going to be able to have money at the end of 4 or 5 or 6 months to cover our costs that we have to cover? So as long as that's what we're at, I'm all in favor of this, and I think we're going into this all together, and we'll put our best foot forward as a city.
Anyone else? Councillor Sandison.
Yeah, I'll be a little more brief. I support this.
Anyone else? Councillor Culhane.
With respect, Your Worship, I understood that non-urgent meetings would be canceled.
Yes, all committee meetings are canceled for the foreseeable basis. That was a decision of the Emergency Control Group. We do not, council doesn't supersede that. What I would just say, I think, Councillor Culhane, what you're getting at is that we're in exceptional circumstances. The corporation of the City of Belleville will continue on carrying the business. I'll speak about that later on in terms of the provision of services. But we have taken the steps to ensure that will continue. We're all focusing on the task at hand, that is right now to ensure that residents can count on the City of Belleville, and we will deal with all those other issues that will come as a result of this time in the future. It's the responsible thing to do. People need to know that no matter what, they can count on the City of Belleville, and this resolution that we're considering now is the most important one that we will deal with this morning, and that's to ensure the continuity of our municipality. Yes.
If I may, I support it completely. I just didn't want to misunderstand what I understood to be the directive, so there would be no non-urgent gatherings or meetings.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the resolution is on the floor regarding the delegation of authority, acts related to finance and planning. All in favor? Motion's carried. 8A2, Municipal Solid Waste and Organics Curbside Collection, the joint contract of the municipalities of Quinte West and the City of Belleville. The General Manager, Transportation and Operations Services and General Manager of Environmental Services report number GMTOS 2020-09. And the resolution is that the tender submission from Environmental 360 Solutions Incorporated be accepted for the provision of waste management services for curbside collection and disposal processing of collected material for the City of Belleville for the period of August 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2025, including household waste, organics, and small and large bulky items at their submitted unit rates, and that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the Corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the City Clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any discussion on the matter? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to, I would suppose, CAO Bove. The previous contract we saw, and just as a side note, the organics is, in particular is what I'm speaking about, our green bin recycling program, if you will. I noticed that in 2019 we diverted 1,180 tons from landfill with this, so it's clearly caught on with the community, and it's an important effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and extend the life of landfills. Pardon the preamble, but with the former carrier, I know that our organics were being transported quite some distance away, Upper Ottawa Valley somewhere. Can you just tell me with E360 Solutions, who are being the recommended contractor here for the next 5 years, are they going to be sending to the same place, or are we going to be using a closer to home organics facility? I didn't see it anywhere in the documents.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. General Manager Reid is here in the audience. I'll ask him to come up, and then we'll ask Mr. Bove if he has anything to add to that. Mr. Reid, welcome.
Through the chair to all council. The organics that were previous through a GFL was going to Moose Creek. I do know that all the waste that is will be going to a landfill site just outside of Napanee, or not Napanee, outside of Niagara Falls. I suspect a lot of the organics will go there. However, the company has taken over the Scaletta property just there at Mineral and Maitland, so they've got some roots here in the community. I suspect it'll probably stay local as they become building more relationships with the local economy and so forth.
Mr. Bove, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I would just add, I think Councillor Millette is correct in drawing attention to the fact that the organics program is very important in terms of reducing the amount of waste that does go to landfill. It's unfortunate, and I guess unfortunate that the waste is hauled a distance away. It really drives home the point that there are lots of ways that people can reduce their waste. The organic bins are definitely one of them, and using your own composting abilities at home is another way that even goes further as far as saving the municipality money on this contract.
Councillor Millette, anything else?
So just quickly, while we have Mr. Reid at the podium, so I guess, Joe, the fact that we have our own, in Thurlow, we have a facility that does process organic waste. we won't be, I guess, then sending our waste to that facility. It will be, as per the contractor, taken wherever they are using organic waste disposal. Is that it?
Yeah, in the contract, we didn't specify it had to go to a certain, long as it met environmental ECA requirements as a location or designated location, so.
All right, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Worship. One thing on the, Joe is here, on the cardboard. I know there's some concerns with some of the merchants downtown and maybe other locations on the restrictions on the size of packages of cardboard that they have to put out. Is that in this contract? And have we looked at some of those restrictions that are putting on I understand it's pretty small packaging, and some of the stores get fairly large boxes in, so.
Yep. Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, all council for that matter. So the collection that was previous for the cardboard in downtown was only started because of the construction that occurred downtown, and it was through the contract because we couldn't get the recycling trucks and so forth down there. DBIA is the one that basically financed that portion of the collection through our waste collection. We did add that in there just in case, but currently all of our cardboards is collected at the request of DBIA. We stop picking it up through our waste contractor, and it's done through Quinny Waste Solutions, which we use as our recycling contractor. I have reached out to them because I have heard some concerns lately about the size of the packaging. A lot of it goes back to their health and safety of their staff, the size of the boxes, the limited staff, because the boxes go in the back of the truck, so it's limited to the size that it can be pushed down in. So that is some of the concerns. I know they said they're going to look into it and monitor it.
So you will be working with the DBIA and trying to...
I will bring these concerns up to the DBIA that there are some concerns from some of the merchants.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else? All right. All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Thompson, I've got a conflict on 8A3, so I'll ask you to handle that item, please.
Thank you, Worship. 8A3, Myers Pier Patio and Beef Barbecue Incorporated, Facility Manager Report Number FM 2020-02, resolution that a request for proposal submission for Myers Pier Patio and Barbecue be accepted to provide food services at Myers Pier in the amount of $8,000 rent per year plus $1,040 HST for a total of $9,040 per year for a term of 5 years plus the option of 5-year renewal, this being the most qualified proposal received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation, the city of Belleville, and the city clerk be authorized to fix the corporate seal, and that a formal lease agreement and bylaw be prepared for council's consideration. Can I have a mover and a second? Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Carr. Any questions? Councillor Millett.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting this wholeheartedly, and it's more of a comment. I want to congratulate and recognize business owner Greg Annesley for his efforts. He's certainly, in a time when this particular business who's been impacted quite heavily by flooding down in the harbor, as we know, Greg owns the Boathouse Seafood Restaurant and has had for the past 20 years. He's certainly had his challenges, but he needs to be recognized for stepping up, even in times of adversity, and enhancing this jewel out on Myers Pier. I mean, he's investing another $40,000, or at least he said he was until what's just happened lately. But, hats off to Mr. Annesley for doing this and expanding the facility out on Myers Pier. It's yet another one of our waterfront attractions to enhance tourism and visitors to the city. So I just wanted to give credit where credit was due there to Mr. Annesley.
Any other questions? Councillor Sean.
Not a question, but through you, Mr. Chair, just wanted to kind of echo what Councillor Millett said. I've known Greg for a long time too, and he's had a very successful business, and over the last year or two he's had lots of challenges from Mother Nature, and let's hope that by summertime, things around the world are much better, and it's a reset, refresh start for a lot of businesses, and we hope for a great summer and wish Craig and his crew all the best there at Myers Pier.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Thank you. Through you, sir. Reiterate the sentiment. This is great. This is great that we have something on Myers that it's been going for a number of years now. My question to through you, Mr. Thompson, to Mr. Bove. Just knowing where we're at right now in terms of restaurants being shut down, the director of the province, obviously we want, same with the pop-ups, to be looking forward and looking into the summer. Have we talked at all right now, or is there plans to talk on delaying payments of the $40,000 for a specific period in order to make sure that this is running and this is going, hopefully, for the summertime?
Mr. Bove?
Through the chair to Councillor Williams, certainly the staff have looked at a number of different options to assist business. With respect to this particular one, I don't know that there's been discussions between the folks at Recreation, Culture, and Community Services and the proponent. We can certainly reach out to them and see. Obviously, if he can't open for the time being, I presume the agreement will just be delayed until such time as he can, and the rent would be prorated over the term of the rest of the year as he can be open. Certainly, the city, in terms of other steps, we've waived penalties on all of our tax bills and water bills, things of that nature. So we're taking steps, and I'm sure we'll have to take more steps as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. And I think just to add that, I would ask that we give that leeway as much as we can to every business, the same as the pop-ups, that we want business to be back to normal as soon as possible. And for Mr. Ainsley, that we have all the hope that he will be open, and to give him as much runway as we can to make sure that that's back open. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. We'll wait for the worship to come back in and proceed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. 8A4, Airbnb Voluntary Collection Agreement, Manager Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-12. And the resolution is that the Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-12 be received and approved, and that a bylaw be prepared for Council consideration which authorizes the execution of an agreement with Airbnb Ireland UC regarding the collection of the municipal accommodation tax. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Carr. Discussion. So just for the benefit of the public, what this is doing is Airbnb has reached an agreement with the City of Belleville that they will voluntarily collect our municipal accommodation fees as part of their billing and remit it to the City of Belleville. So this includes a large sector of the accommodations industry in Belleville, and which was necessary. So this is a positive sign. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor, the motion's carried. We'll just have Councillor Williams come back in. Item 8A5, 155 Jameson Bone Road, Restrictive Covenants Removal and Manager Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-11. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-11 be received and approved, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the required documents to release the property described as 155 Jameson Bone Road from certain existing covenants in favor of the City of Belleville, and that a bylaw authorizing same be prepared for Council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Carr. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. 8A6, Pop-Up Shops 2020. Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-13. Resolution is that Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-13 regarding the plan for pop-ups in 2020 be received and approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Williams. Questions and discussion. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report recommends the waiving of fees for returning vendors from the 2019 season. And while ordinarily that's a reasonable request, these are extraordinary times, and as Councillor Williams just indicated, business is suffering all over the city, particularly food business. I voted against this last year, and for that rationale, and even stronger, I will vote against it this year. The concessions can't be made for one if they can't be made for all, would be my perspective.
Thank you, Councillor Culhane. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I would tend to agree with Councillor Culhane. The business community overall is suffering, and I realize the amount is small, but it's not the amount that counts. It's the principle of the matter. And, you know, as much as I'm all for business, as you know, I just think that this is something at this time that we should not be asking for, given the situation we're currently in.
Thank you. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we need to think of this in context. 2 years ago, we approved a budget for last year and this year for pop-ups, and last year we did have some struggles, and staff, not the vendors themselves, but staff brought forward a proposal that was beat in council or turned down in council. And I was one of those that voted against it at the time. But I think we need to build on the lessons learned from last year. And I think, as Councillor Culhane said, that it's a small amount. It's $500 for the season. So I think this is something that hopefully COVID-19 is behind us and we're up in full operation. And I think as sort of a peace offering, if you will, to those vendors that suffered with us last year, if they're willing to step up and invest again this year, I think it behooves us to waive the fee. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through your worship, and I just wanted, if we could, can I bring Karen Post to the podium? Thank you, Karen, if you can come up. Manager Post.
Question for you.
Thank you, Ms. Post. And I know that a couple of weeks ago, or I missed it, I had a hazy last couple of months, you had actually a workshop for entrepreneurs to see if there was interest in the pop-ups. Can you let us know, has there been interest? Did you see or have you seen some interest this year over last year, and some of the returning ones? Have you talked to them at all?
Through the chair to Councillor Williams, yes, we did have a bit of an open house for any businesses that may be interested in submitting an RFP for one of the pop-up shops. We have had considerable interest from local business. I'm going to say we've had at least 6 serious inquiries, in addition to those, in addition to some food trucks and so on that are interested in locating in West Zwicks Park. I'd say we have more interest this year than we have had last year.
Okay, great. And of the returning ones, do you have a feel that some of them are, or of all of them, are going to come back?
We have had discussions with the 3 vendors from last year. At this point, we don't know if they will be coming back. Some are interested for sure.
Okay, thank you. And through you, just I think this is, especially considering the times, we want to be very positive and think this is going to be a success, especially in West Wicks. The location seems great. A couple things, of course, we're looking at. We hope the flooding is down. We hope COVID-19 is subsided. We hope that even if we have, and we do have challenges in the business community, you know, entrepreneurship is still something where we're seeing it already. People starting new businesses in the wake of the crisis to do more delivery, you know, to do more what we call the gig economy, more contract work to help businesses out. I see that the same as the pop-ups, that hopefully this is going to be a bright light for some businesses to say, I can have a new location where, it's outdoors and a nice spot of the city that they can make it work. So I think this is again, still very positive this year, more positive if you had more interest. That's great. Like we said before, this is a make it year. We want this to be very successful. So I would support, if we can get the ones from last year coming back, that we waive those fees. Down the road, we might have to look at other things for incentives, but I think, again, this is hopefully something that we see very successful coming up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Worship, and I will be supporting this motion, and I echo Councillor Sanderson's comments that $500 is a reasonable fee. All I want to make a point of, and I understand where Councillor Culhane and McCaw are coming from. There are a lot of restaurants and service industries that are hurting as a result of the current economic climate. But let's remember, we invited these people who took a leap to open these pop-up shops the last time around. And through circumstances that were out of our control, as a goodwill gesture and as a, some of these people took a real beating the last time around. To help them come back and to restore some sense of doing the right thing, this is a small gesture, and I think, as Councillor Sanderson said, we need to show this as a good faith gesture if we're going to get anybody who's going to take a leap like this in the future, because it's outside of what these aren't just franchises or family restaurants that are opening up. These are people who we invited in to take part in this experiment, and I think we owe it to them to make this gesture. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Millette. Next on the list, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Worship. I'm going to support the motion. I just think that if you are listening to Manager Perrin Post, there's new vendors that are interested in coming. She doesn't seem to be really assured about the past ones being interested, so maybe they've, because they've felt such the pinch in the last 2 years, that maybe this time they're a little more hesitant. But if we show some direction as a council, it may entice them to come back, because they really did take a beating over the last year or two. And if we can give them that little extra help and maybe sustain them and it'll show good direction for the new ones coming on, that the old ones are still willing to come back and relocate. I think the location's good. So I think we owe it to the past vendors to help them a little bit. And if they're successful this year, they'll come back and we'll get their fees next year. And but this is and we never know how we're going to have to help other businesses as a city over the next short period of time because of the virus that's going around. So this shows us a very small bit of direction, but a direction that the city can certainly afford in their mandate. So I certainly support it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I've got Councillor Kelly, then followed by, on a second round, Councillors McCaw and Culhane. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Couple of questions for you too, Ms. Post. The goal this year was to have 6 pop-ups. You mentioned a couple of weeks ago you had that open house ceremony, setting, and there's lots of interest in 2 food trucks this year. So when I look at this, I'm going to be supporting this. I'm the rep for the city on the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, and there's been some good conversations about moving it to West Wicks. We need Mother Nature to work with us this summer. We know that the waterfront is there, Canada Day celebrations, and if we can get our partners with the Chamber and the Canada Day Committee to work with us on this, this is going to be a win-win. And last year we had the flooding. This year we're dealing with COVID-19, and we're not too sure when there's going to be an end with that. But let's hope that this summer is going to work. The budget has $103,000 still remaining in it. It's $500 per pop-up is the cost. And this year we know already that from Tourism Ontario there's going to be a big push investing in staycations in your hometown, putting the fun factor back with your family, short drives. And if everything works out well and West Wicks Park is a destination for young families in Belleville and the area, I think it's a win-win for our young entrepreneurs. with the pop-ups. We get those food trucks. There's energy. It's come alive, and let's hope it works out. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McCaw. Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
Before, I'm going to go, Councillor Carr has not spoken on the first
Okay.
round, so I'll go to Councillor Carr, and then on the second round, we'll start with you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Panchuk. Certainly, and I'm going to support this this motion. This is a new initiative, and in its first year, it faced adversity. And now, we're kind of facing a little bit of an uncertain future in terms of a return to normalcy. But the fact that we have entrepreneurs that are interested, and we should be encouraging it, particularly something new. And I appreciate there's all kinds of concerns from families and their affordability and existing businesses, but we're talking about a new initiative that isn't really even found its feet yet. And so waiving of that fee, it's nominal, but I think it's the right thing to do to encourage it. I agree with others here. We're going to have to look at some initiatives depending on what senior levels of government do as well. But I think and the capital funding's in place. So we have to provide fertile ground, if you will, to allow these businesses to at least launch. And, last year they launched, but it was a tough road to hoe along the way. I think we need to continue to give them that extra push, just like we have done in certain grants for certain organizations. We've given them money to give that push out the door, and then we've receded back and said, okay, you're on your own. And I don't look at this as any different than that. And particularly where we are now, I think that we're in a quiet time, if you will, while we sit and wait. But I think that people have this optimism as we move forward. And I can tell you that once this is done and this virus moves on, everybody is going to be out of their house, and everybody is going to be crawling all over this community for things to do. So there's going to be a lot of pent-up energy, if you will. And so we have to make sure that businesses there are to catch that and to be successful and to recover and to become successful in our community. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. On the second round, Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said before. If you're not going to give to everyone, you shouldn't give to anyone. I've invested in this city personally in business, 3 businesses in fact, and I understand that when things happen, such as COVID-19, such as flooding, that is the cost of doing business. That is the cost. If you're not prepared, if you can't handle and you're not prepared for this, then you're not prepared to start business. Now, while I understand what Councillor Carr is saying, but if you want to stimulate these pop-up shops, you can't just give it to a select few. Give it to all or give it to none. That's my position on this. My position would be to not give it to anyone if you can't give it to everybody in this community who has a business suffering, and there are plenty. But if that is the will of council, to go ahead and give this money, and again, it isn't about the amount, it's about the principle of the matter. But again, we've just heard from Manager Post that she's had a lot of interest, and that interest includes paying the rent. So if she has 6 vendors that are prepared to step forward and invest in the pop-up shops at that rent, then I guess we don't have a problem here. So, that's just my opinion on it, and I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCaw. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just to clarify, Manager Post, if I may, when reference is made to the beating taken by the vendors financially, it was my understanding that the city provided the entire setup. Is that not correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Culhane. Yes, for the most part we did. We did require that the vendors make modifications and provide whatever infrastructure they needed. We provided the pop-up shelter, some picnic tables, a bit of infrastructure there, but if they needed to outfit the pop-up with something in particular, they invested that amount of money.
So in the case of a rental business, other than bringing stock to the pop-up shop, you wouldn't need any modifications or?
I do believe there was some specific painting done by some of the vendors. There was some shelving installed. There were a few modifications made.
Okay, but not huge financial investment?
No.
Thank you.
All right. Before I call the vote, I'll just make a couple of comments. thanks very much, Manager Post. The proverbial sun will come up tomorrow, and we, as Councillor Carr had said, are looking forward to a spectacular spring in the Quinte region. And there is nothing better than spending it outdoors. People will be wanting to get back together and to socialize and to go out. And this program is going to be wonderfully received, but we've got to take this action today in order to make sure that we can proceed with it there. So first of all, I'm so happy to see that we are passing this bylaw today to provide for the 2020 season of pop-ups. The second part of this is that last year, through no fault of our own as a municipality and no fault of the vendors that signed up that they were going to go to Victoria Island, we had to make changes. And those changes did not, while they made the best of a bad situation, they were not ideal in any means. So we changed the rules, we changed the situation. Again, through no fault of our own, but we changed the situation last year. And what we had expected and what the vendors had expected did not occur. And that's why I had suggested a few meetings ago that we look at returning vendors waiving their fee this year. Again, nominal amount, but it is a indication on the part of the city that we appreciated their taking the chance last year, struggling through a location in a season that did not meet their expectations for sales. It would have been very easy for them to say, look, I'm not getting what I need, I'm going to shut her up and we're going to close it. But they didn't. They continue to operate. And so today is a opportunity for us to say, we're going to recognize that, and we're going to match by waiving the fees for you this year. So, I respect the very respectful conversation we've had on both sides. I know there are two sides of this issue, but I will be voting in favor of the resolution. And with that, I will call the question. All in favor of the resolution on pop-ups? Opposed? The motion is carried. The next part of our agenda deals with consent items. We have items 8B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Any items councillors want to pull? I'll start with Councillor Millette. Councillor Williams.
No.
Councillor Thompson.
Just one item on the grant committee. I'm not going to, I just want to note that I'm a member of Eastminster Church and they're getting some of the money. So
Okay, you're noting an interest in that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McCaw. Councillor Sanderson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
8B3 and 8B4, please.
8B3 and 8B4, thank you. Councillor Culhane. Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
All right, so the following agenda items be approved with the exception of 8B3 and 8B4. Correct? I need a motion for that. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. Let's move to item number 8B3, the City of Belleville Grant Committee, Director of Finance Treasurer's Report number DF 2020-09. And the resolution is that Council approve the recommendations of the Grant Committee as outlined in the Director of Finance Treasurer's Report number DF 2020-09, City of Belleville Grant Committee. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Williams. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Mayor Panchuk, and also Councillor McCaw for going through that. The Grant Committee, as Council sees, we had an enormous amount of grant applications under social infrastructure as well as arts, and it was difficult trying to make those decisions and go through it with so many great organizations. We tried to balance it out in terms of the need and the greatest impact, particularly on the social infrastructure fund. And then with the grant committee, we also looked at new versus returning applications and tried to balance it out there. So it wasn't a bad exercise to go through, and certainly I appreciate the support of the finance staff trying to make the numbers work and balancing out. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for discussion or questions? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on the grant committee, we had, I think at our last council meeting, talked about the fact that there were $600,000 worth of grants that we were looking at, and we had available funds to sort of source or support that with about $200,000. If I draw your attention to page 9, 8B9, in background, the document says that the policy was developed This is the grant policy, to provide an equitable process for the review and approval of requests for monetary grants. So the word equitable means that there's fair and equal treatment of all. So one approach that would be fair and equitable would be to take the $200,000 that's available and give each grant that applied, and obviously if it made it to the report, it met the criteria, and support all of it with 1/3 of the funding request. So if in fact it's an arbitrary process and not an equitable process, then I can understand the decisions and the recommendations that have come forward. So if I could, through the chair, maybe ask the finance director, Carol, if she's here, if she could come to the podium and perhaps address the comments around the equitable process.
Well, perhaps, and I'll start first with it. You know, fair and equitable is exactly what the process that was followed, not just with this year's grant process, but in each year. With respect to the social infrastructure funding, with respect to the community arts and culture funding, and with the monthly grant process, the committee has always notified the community that we are prepared to receive applications. Everybody has an equal opportunity to apply by following that process. All applications are considered by the committee, and then a recommendation comes from the grant committee to council to make that decision. You know, I understand, you know, if you have a suggestion that we should distribute the funding differently, I don't think that applies to suggest that the process is unequitable. It is a completely transparent, open, and equal process. It is a difficult decision, and you can't sometimes get away from making it a difficult decision. One way to do it, perhaps make it less difficult, to say that anybody that applies, we're going to share the funding amongst the whole group. But then I think we talk about effectiveness. We talk about whether or not the resources that we have that are limited are utilized best. And if you go through the grant committee's recommendation, you will see there are various amounts for a number of different organizations. Those were all considered and debated by the grant committee, and then the recommendations come before you. If you disagree with the recommendations, that is the prerogative of all members of council. None of us in the grant committee would take offense to it. We understand that everybody has a different opinion and everyone has a different process. But at the end of the day, we have to have a mechanism that is open, transparent, and equal. Director Hines, do you have anything you want to add to that for Councillor Sanderson?
I think you've done an excellent job of explaining how we approach it. So just to let you know, finance doesn't filter any of the applications when we receive them. So I think it's generally accepted that the applications, some fit the standard of social infrastructure funding better than others do. And I think that's been the task that the committee has been given, is to determine which ones fit the criteria most effectively. And I would also suggest that we refer to equitable as being a fair process, and I think that is basically what they're undertaking. So
thank you. Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you for those comments. Certainly, I'm not challenging the good work that the committee does or the method by which they assess and evaluate the various applications. The only thing that caught my eye is that it states that the policy was developed to provide an equitable process for the approval of requests. So equitable in and of itself means fair and equal to all. That's what that word means. So maybe it's just wording, and maybe we could find a more suitable word, because the way in which we're dispersing the grants isn't equitable.
Thank you. And I would just point out, in your opinion. So other of us may feel that the process is equitable, and that's fine. You know, we can discuss it, and in the future, if someone wants to bring an amendment to the bylaw that established the grant committee and their consideration, that's always in order. Anyone else for questions or discussion on this? Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you. And what just to follow up on the comments there, the equitable process is that each application comes in, there is a scoring that has criteria, and that is all applied equally and equitably. And it's not the equitable distribution of funds, it's the equitable process of reviewing the applications. And those applications are reviewed diligently and equally, given the same scoring weight in terms, or scoring, and then we determine the weight of the scoring and looking at the results in terms of how it impacts the community. So if it was simple enough of just equitable funds, that would be easy, and we would just probably just bring them all here and go through it. The committee actually has to look at the scoring that goes with it. It talks about community impact and some of the other things, and it's not coming to me right now, but we have an actual score sheet that we review these applications with. So the process is equitable. We don't look at, say, some of them more intensely than others. They're equally applied, and some are debated more than others because some are on that cusp, if you will. No different than when we're looking at a particular item here and have difference of opinion, but we're giving it its equitable review.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just, I'm sure it wasn't an easy task for the grant committee to decide on where the funds were going and who was going to receive them. The only thing I would suggest, and maybe it's more work for the grant committee, but some of us are new to the game, just in over a year, and if anybody was to read this, if it's up on the website, you look at the John Howard Society, Belleville and District got $50,000. I would suggest maybe some literature of what they actually do, because not everybody's in the zone and what they do. It's self-explanatory with the Bridge Street United Church. They got $25,000 for the meals program, but there's some here at just nightlife Belleville. I know what they do, but some may not have an idea what they actually do, and it might be just a nice way to educate everybody in the area what these different organizations do with a sentence or two. Is that possible?
Yeah, and I think I have to correct something you said, Councillor Kelly. Some of those organizations you mentioned are being recommended not to have funds provided to them.
Okay, sorry.
So no, like I know it's there were a lot of applications this year, and unfortunately we couldn't help them. But there were if you look at the report, item number 4, the first portion are the ones the committee is recommending that be approved. If that is the case, then the following ones underneath would be they were denied because there's no funding.
I take
section
it back.
number 5 is the same thing, where you have the organizations that received it and those that did not. Again, very difficult process, as we all explained. And I would just want to clarify, the decision to fund these groups is not that of the committee. The committee is making a recommendation to council. Council will make the decision of whether or not to fund these groups or to make changes to the recommendation.
Right,
Anyone else? Councillor Carr?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to belabor this, but Councillor Kelly does bring a good point, is that for members that aren't on the committee and maybe not recognize every particular organization and not know what their deliverable is. So perhaps maybe in future have, as Councillor Kelly points out, a quick summary, not a lot, and then even for the purpose of these applications, we have some staff here, and I know they're listening. Perhaps maybe we could just, when we push this out, to say these are the successful applications, just a one-liner as to what the deliverable is, and then that way the community has a better understanding. And then we'll make sure on a go-forward basis from the committee's perspective, we'll have staff make sure that those applications are there.
Sure. Can I just pause for a moment? And I'm just going to ask Director Hines if that's an excellent suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
So can your staff work with communication so that when we release the organizations that have received funding, just a description with what activity the funding was requested to support?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Keep going, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, and then I was just going to say, on a go-forward basis, we'll make sure that that's included. Members get a copy of the grant committee minutes, which has the full request, but good point on Councillor Kelly's point to make sure that we're putting this out to the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so the motion on the floor is to receive the recommendation of the grant committee. All in favor? The motion's carried. 8B4, 2020 final tax due dates, the revised information, including the Director of Finance Treasurer's Report number DF 2020-12. And the resolution is that bylaw 2020-54, a bylaw to establish the 2020 final tax due dates for the collection of taxes and the payment of taxes by installment for all property classes in the City of Belleville, be amended as outlined in Report DOF 2020-12. Moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Carr. Director Hines, I wonder if before I open it up to my colleagues, if you can perhaps explain what this resolution is intending to do and why it's coming before us today.
If you recall from the previous meeting, this report was all the original final tax due dates were on the agenda for the past meeting, and they were passed by council. This is a requirement under the Municipal Act. The municipalities have to set their interim billing dates or interim collection dates and their final tax collection dates. Municipalities that are required to bill and collect in the same period that they assess taxes. So this covers off all of the taxation for 2020. We should know our final budget. We have to know our final budget before we actually prepare our final tax bills. As we all know, that's been pushed out. So certainly that's a consideration for preparing tax bills and figuring out when we are going to have our due dates. And then beyond that, we're dealing with COVID-19 and all this, certainly, the economic uncertainty that's unfolding around us. So what we've basically done is we've pushed out we have four tax installment dates throughout the year. We've already had one, that was at the end of February. The second interim installment date was April. We've actually moved that, excuse me, now to the end of June. And then we had two other final installment dates which were passed at the last meeting. They were June 26th and September 28th. We've moved those dates to August 27th and October 28th. And that's basically the best solution that we can come up with for providing some relief in the community. What will happen with there'll basically be no interest charged until July the 2nd.
All right. Colleagues, questions? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, and certainly appreciate the fact that these have been adjusted. It was either late last year or early this year, and every year it's a typical exercise that council partakes in. We pass a bylaw for the borrowing of sums if we require it for the operation. So with the budget not being set, and we don't have a date yet, pushing the tax installments, does staff see having to borrow in the interim for any operational?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And the delegation of authority means that if we should have to, staff are authorized to take that necessary action. Anyone else? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and just to go on that, I know this week one of the big announcements was the big banks who announced a 6-month deferral of some mortgages for those that qualify for that. In that survey that we did do, alarming stat was up to 30 or 40% of businesses are looking to lay off employees right now. We know that restaurants and bars are closed, so no income. I know as a business owner, I know we have several business owners in this room, we're looking at costs really heavily right now, and there's some costs we're not going to be able to make. So as a business owner, if you're closed and you have to pay payroll or lay off or pay some other bills, have we looked at if I guess a couple questions. One, further to that date for installments, if taxes aren't going to be paid, are we okay? So I'm asking further than, I'm going to say 6 months because that's what the banks have set for mortgages. And two, in terms of a city and looking at reserves, besides, and I guess is the answer that we are going to borrow? Is that one of the options we have to continue operations, or do we have to?
Against our reserves if it's necessary.
Against our reserves, okay. So not going up for debentures, just looking for reserves. So basically, have we been able to, or are we starting to look 6 months out yet, just to be sure?
We're dealing, as with all of the other operational concerns that are unfolding with COVID-19, we're dealing with immediate chunks of time until more details become available. So.
Okay, and I think just knowing some of these stats, and I think the important part will be to keep getting data. So I'm not saying to be alarmed and make actions now. We still have an operation budget to look at some point, but I think it's best that we probably, and what I'm stating as a council, is that we keep listening, and I know Karen Post is doing that as well, to our businesses. And as we keep going on, I just want to make sure you have the power, and I think, Rod, you've been given that now, to make sure we're looking not just 2 months out, but 6 months out or 12 months out. So we're in the best financial position as a city because we can't go into deficit. That's
right.
number one. Every other government can go into a deficit. We are unable to, correct?
Exactly. So we're looking at 2020. We're looking at what we're required to do under the Municipal Act. As you know, the province is changing the rules every day in reaction to COVID-19. What we're required to do presently is bill and collect in the same year. So basically, the due dates that we proposed in this report are about as far as we can push out. We also have reassessment coming this year as of this time. So, I mean, it's hard to say what will happen with reassessment. I would suggest that the information in this report, particularly the part about interest, can be reviewed as time goes by to see how we are recovering. So,
Right. Anyone else? Councillor Culhane, I've got you next on the list.
Through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to thank you, Carol, for the work that's clearly been done, and it's of some comfort to people that these dates are delayed, I'm sure.
thank you.
Right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, Director Hines. And I would agree with Councillor Culhane's comment. You know, we are dealing with what we have control over. This is the first step in terms of dealing with the property tax issue that we have to deal with, but appreciate you coming forward and appreciate what we'll have to do over the coming days and weeks. The resolutions on the floor, all in favor? It's carried. Council information matters. We have 3 of them. I'm going to go around the table and see if anyone wants to pull any. Councillor Millette, Councillor Williams, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw. Councillor Sandison.
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor Culhane. 8C, we have 8C1 and 8C2. Which one? 8C2B. B. That the following agenda items be received, save, and accept items 8C2B. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor, it's carried. Item number 8C2B, long-term care, paramedic services, and community and social human services. A letter to the Premier of Ontario from County of Hastings, City of Belleville, and the City of Quinte West. Let's get on the floor. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Councillor Culhane, discussion.
Thank you, Your Worship. This letter is signed by Rick Phillips, the Warden of Hastings County, our Mayor Mitch Panchuk, and Mayor Jim Harrison from the City of Quinte West. It references the delivery of long-term care, paramedic services, and community and human services, which includes Ontario Works, housing, and childcare for the 14-member municipalities and 2 separated cities of Quinte West and Belleville. There are grave concerns with recent cuts. It has cost an additional $395,000 to support even critically important daycare spaces. People are very disturbed about the COVID-19, and well, they should be, but this letter references essential services to this community, the delivery of same, and as leaders for the community and caretakers of the public purse, I support this letter and hope that it will be circulated to all municipalities and to AMO. We have, at the Long-Term Care Committee, not only accepted their increased costs, we have increased their request to reach an unprecedented 3 hours of care where the ministry gold standard is 4. We are short 80,000 bedside caregivers across the province, PSWs, and we will continue to lose more if this is allowed to go on. Long-term care in particular must be supported given the number of elderly that are soon needing its services. We have a wait list, I believe, of 380 people for beds at Hastings Manor. The situation is not improving, it's getting more severe. So I simply wanted to summarize what the letter was, the challenges faced by the county, and our request for support from our government. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I too will support the letter going to Queen's Park. I'm on the committee, if you will, for long-term care and EMS, and I just want to echo what Councillor Culhane has said. There are many challenges in long-term care, particularly with Hastings Manor here in Belleville and Centennial Manor in Bancroft. COVID-19 has closed all visitation for those to go see their family members. Can you imagine the stress inside those two facilities? And I know Debbie Rowlands and her team at both locations continue to do the job. And, you know, you think of the PSWs, it's 3 for 33 residents. That's the ratio. That's just one. And I know there are many concerns in long-term care, but overworked, stressed out. And I'm going to give a shout out to the PSWs closest to the residents and probably the lowest paid employees in that sector. And we see it all the time. Those who are closest to the work and the individuals always seem to get the lowest dollars. So I know they've been under a lot of stress in the last month, but I support this letter. We need more from the province to support long-term care and to make quality of life that much better for the residents.
Thank you. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, through the chair. So the letter has gone to Premier Ford on March the 10th, but I'd like to build on the comments that Councillor Culhane made regarding long-term care. What we will see in the budget that comes before us is basically part of the increase, certainly for long-term care, was that there was a landmark decision made to provide 3 hours of care to both the residents at Hastings Manor and Centennial. There were significant funds allocated by all 3 groups, Quinte West, ourselves, and Hastings County, to make that happen. And the province has set a target of 4. So basically, we've taken it to 75% of that target. And what's behind this letter is that we need the province to step forward with the funding for the additional 25% if we're ever going to get to 4. So I just wanted to share that with the group. And I'm certainly proud of the work that's been done by the Long-Term Care Committee, and look forward to seeing the benefit of those additional hours this year and going forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? And I just, you know, the business of the Corporation of the City of Belleville continues to move on. Yesterday, recently the province has announced 7,000 additional long-term care spaces that are available. Yesterday, I was involved in a call with our planning department with a vendor who is interested in establishing an additional facility here in Belleville, so that's very good news. We hope they'll be successful. We certainly need more capacity, but the point is that in spite of the circumstances we're under, we continue to move forward, and hopefully we'll get some good news on it. Councillor Culhane, I'll let you finish up. This is your motion, and then we'll call a vote on it.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, if I may, the 7,000 spaces that you referred to, they're across the province?
Province, yes. And so the province is receiving requests for proposals for operators who wish to establish privately owned facilities that would receive government funding. And of those 7,000 spaces, no one is guaranteed any. It depends on the bids, but there are operators that are interested in applying for facilities here in Belleville.
So if I may, would that be equivalent to, say, Quinte Gardens?
Quinte Gardens, Hastings Manor, all types of long-term care. They'll make a proposal with respect to what level of service. They will not be operated by Hastings County, but they will still be providing the similar service that those facilities are. All right, all in favor? It's carried. We'll move next to bylaws, first reading of bylaws, and I'm going to pull a bylaw because I know Councillor Williams has a conflict on it, so we'll pull bylaw number 2020, and we'll deal with it first. 2020-70, thank you, yes, that's what I meant. First reading of bylaw number 2020-70, which is the bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and Airbnb Ireland UC for the collection of municipal accommodation tax. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of bylaw 2020-70, moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on the bylaw? All in favor? It's carried. And third and final reading of bylaw 2020-70, the bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and Airbnb Ireland UC for collection of the municipal accommodation tax. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Councillor Williams. First reading of bylaws number 2020-60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, and 69. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? Carried. Second reading of bylaws number 2020-60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, and 69. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion on any of those bylaws? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. And third and final reading of bylaws number 2020-60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, and 69. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. New business. Before I open it up, I'd like to just perhaps summarize for the public and for the media some of the actions that the City of Belleville has already taken as our residents and businesses deal with the effects of the COVID-19 virus and the changing circumstances. First of all, for transit, transit will continue to operate, and bus passes for March have been extended till April 30th. So anyone that has a bus pass for March, that pass will be extended to the end of April. And I'll note that in an effort to protect the safety of our drivers, access to our buses is through the center door, unless they are needing to have accessibility access, but the access will be through the center door. And we are not collecting fare payment for the next foreseeable while. So those, I believe in some cases there is a collection bag. Those who are able to, we would encourage to continue to pay because these services cost us money, but we are not accepting fare payment by the driver on buses. Parking passes and permits that have been issued by the City of Belleville, any that are out now are extended until April the 30th. And we still are doing enforcement, but I'll stress that it is much reduced. The enforcement that we will be following in the future is to ensure that public safety is maintained for access to our facilities, but we are cognizant of the times that we're in. Garbage bag tags. We will continue to collect garbage. Any residents who are concerned because they are under self-quarantine and they're unable to get out and pick up garbage bag tags don't need to worry about the city collecting their garbage. We will continue to collect the limited numbers that we have at this time. The Belleville Public Library is not receiving books to be returned. If you have books out, don't worry about it. There are no late fines. When we're able to, we'll ask you to return the books at that time, but we don't need to worry about late fines. City services continue, as I have been saying. We have an online payment process for anyone that needs to deal with their items, but we are waiving all property tax and water bill administrative fees, any administrative charges, any late payment fees, any interest charges during this time. Those are being waived by the City of Belleville. Property taxes. We just passed our bylaw dealing with the property tax cycle of this year. We have immediately instituted a 2-month deferral of property taxes in this first installment. And during that time, we've also extended back the other 2 following payment periods by 1 month at each time. We are giving an interest-free period for those areas. So basically, there are 4 months of interest-free payments this year, and we are committed to further reviewing and assisting our residents and businesses if they need help as this unfolds. So we want to assure people that while they have lots to be worried about, their property taxes at this point, we've taken these steps to take that off their concerns. Not everybody pays their taxes in installments. Many people pay their property taxes as part of a monthly payment plan. And if you are in a monthly payment plan with the city and you are concerned about your payments and during this time of relaxation, please contact us at the City of Belleville and we can revise those payment terms. Some residents pay their property taxes through their bank and as part of their mortgage payments. And so they will have to reach out to their banks, their financial lenders themselves to arrange to take advantage of this relief period that we are providing for residents. I do want to stress that deferral does not mean it won't be paid, but also that the city also has to be able to continue to meet our payroll obligations, provide services and pay for things. So people who can pay, I would encourage them to continue to do so. We're counting on them. Those who can't pay because they find themselves in the situation we're in, we've taken these steps to give you some assistance, and they shouldn't feel badly about doing that. But as I said, if you can pay, please do so. Parking tickets or any other municipal fines that are levied either previously or in the future, no interest will be charged on those until this is over, as people cannot access our city buildings. Belleville Water will continue our policy of no disconnections until after this event, and I'm very happy that after being requested by the Emergency Control Group on Monday, Alexicon Energy has also continued their policy of no disconnections until after this event. Municipal staff have received policy regarding dealing with workplace accommodations. So CEO Bove has sent out a notification to all members of our staff to advise them of our policy dealing with workplace accommodation, quarantine protocols, and the continuation of salary and benefits for all employees of the city. Today, as I said earlier, perhaps the most important measure we have taken is the delegation of authority from City Council to the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Finance to ensure that we are able to respond to any future issues. And once we have a fuller understanding of timelines and the rollout of the federal and provincial programs, we will determine what other action the City of Belleville can take to assist during this time. I want to remind everybody that we all need to look out for each other with special attention to those who are most vulnerable and have the least amount of resources. And we are working with our partners on behalf of the City of Belleville to ensure that services are continued there. And also keep up to date on our City of Belleville website and our social media platforms, as well as I encourage everyone to go to the Hastings Prince Edward Health Unit website for more information, and I'll mention that in a little while longer. Anyone else have any new business items they'd like to address? Councillor Thompson.
Just one item, yard waste, unfortunately because of the warm weather, that may be a concern, and residents, and unfortunately now because people may be laid off, the yards can be clean. Has there been any look at, I don't know what the date is for the yard waste place to open at Wallbridge Crescent, and if I can get a date from Mr. Reid.
My understanding is that our operations are normal with respect to yard waste as well. If Manager Reid has anything he would like to add to that, perhaps he might actually have the specific dates. I know we'll be advertising that to the community, Councillor Thompson, but General Manager Reid?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Thompson. Actually, Rod and I were talking about this yesterday in light of, people being at home and, still wanting to get out and not going stir crazy in a mild spring. Typically, it's about middle of April. April 14th is when it is. I have actually reached out to the contractor, and we're trying to look at some dates to maybe move it up a little bit.
Yeah, that would be.
But I'm not sure right now what a firm date, but we are looking at that.
But that'll be distributed through the media from City Hall if the date does change. I think it's if we could move it at least till April 1st. That would be a good thing on behalf of the city. So I just put that out there. So
thank you, Councillor Thompson. We'll take that under, and Manager Reid is dealing with a lot of things right now, and we'll look at that. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you.
You can sit. We're still we relax the rules today.
Okay. Excellent. No, I just want to take a moment and recognize the staff that are doing the work that they're doing. This is a crisis. We are going to get through it. Now that we've delegated our authority earlier in the meeting, I guess what I would ask you, through you, what do you see us doing as a council at this point to help mitigate some of the effects of this crisis?
Well, that's a good question in terms of where we can maximize and be the most useful for our community. All of us sought these positions because of our desire for public service. And I think that we have all been taking the appropriate action. We're hearing lots of needs. So first step is to get out of the way of our very capable staff who will manage the affairs for the city as we move forward, and to be available should they need any assistance. For example, now that the province has allowed us to have electronic meetings if necessary, to be available to, if they come to us and they're restricted in some way, we will be available to make sure that no matter what, the business of the city of Belleville will continue and the services that residents rely on continue. Being out of the way of staff and letting them do their job, the question is what we can do most. I would suggest that over the coming days and weeks, there are a number of residents who have high levels of anxiety. Social distancing is going to have impacts on some people. The most effective and most important thing that we as councillors can do is remain available to our constituents. If people have questions, they can contact us by calling us, by emailing us, and by following appropriate social distancing procedures. We can see them in the community. In addition, we should probably start looking at opportunities to search out and to help people and find out what the needs are. I know many members of council have been dealing with items that are not part of our jurisdiction. For example, the disruption that all colleges are going through, where they're now directed to have the students leave their residence. We have a number of students all over Ontario who don't have somewhere to go yet, or aren't going to be able to leave the country. And so we're getting involved in helping, even though it's not our responsibility. We're doing that as individuals, and I think that's important. I heard a saying about how we need to have clean hands and a full heart over the next coming weeks and days. And I would say that that's probably the most effective thing that we can do. This is a trying time for all of us, residents, businesses. We didn't get into this business to be able to have to deal with these things, but we're called upon to do it, and we're stepping forward and doing that. So that's my encouragement. I'll have a message at the end under announcements about as we move forward. But as human beings, we have compassion for those who are going to struggle, and I think that's our primary job as members of council. We were elected to represent them, and part of that representation is going to be to do what we can. And sometimes just offering a shoulder is the most important thing we can do. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through your worship. And just so I know that we've had our operation budget delayed to CAO Beauvais, do we have any idea when we'll be looking at that at this point?
Chief Administrative Officer Beauvais.
Through the chair to Councillor Williams. No, we're really just playing it by ear, see how this event unfolds, and as we get more information and things become as clear as they can be, then we'll move to establish some dates for us to do that as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, and what I would where I'm getting at is this unfolds, and again, being close to the business community, and as we all are getting calls every day, and that's, I think, well said, that we are just there to support. We're here to do everything we can as elected officials. It is very trying, and hearing the things that are happening, it seems to be coming very fast. Of course, we're looking over the world, and we're looking what's happening, and hopefully we can contain it here, and that's our best case scenario. But what I'd like to ask for when we get to that operation budget is a report on what capital items we have not spent and not signed contracts with right now. So we might have some other tools to bring in that operation budget. And I know Councillor Carr normally always has a motion for a 1.5%. I would tend to say that right now we need to be prepared to look at even a zero. And the case being that if we are at a point Again, unprecedented that, we have banks offering 6-month deferral on mortgages, unprecedented that we're seeing, the amount of money coming down from stimulus from the federal government. I think just in being prudent with tax dollars, I'd just like to make sure we have tools in hand should it be worse than we think, and so that we're being the most caring for our businesses and our communities and our property owners that we can, and that we're making sure we take care of them. So that's just that's what I'd ask for if we can at that point. Another just comment, just in terms of getting calls, I just wanted to say from hotels on residents from the college. That's being handled by hotels in the whole city right now. Hotels have stepped up, with accommodations for our military through quarantine and now through residents, and that's something that we're happy to see that the city of Belleville is doing that. It's the whole city, and it's great that everyone's stepping up for that. And my last comment was just on, that if anyone's out there in businesses, again, call all of us as councillors. We won't have all the answers, but Karen Post also has an office that she can answer. But people are out there, I think they just want to hear from us, and they want to know that we're available. And I know that we all are as a council. So anyone to call us anytime, anytime, right, Garnet?
All right, thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Worship. If I can continue on Councillor Williams' point, I'm in touch with the students at Loyalist, and the situation is not within the control of the municipality, and I recognize that. However, it's out on social media that some students are being evicted today with simply no place to go. My understanding from fellow councillors is that contracts were signed with local hotels yesterday, so those students will have shelter. The students who are in touch with me have not confirmed that. I'm waiting to hear from them. It's an untenable situation. It's certainly not specific just to this municipality. However, I think from a basic humanitarian perspective, we need to, people need to know what is happening to these young people who are here from halfway around the world. So I will hear from specific students as the day progresses, and I will post on social media what information they give me, and I will do my best to be in touch with Loyalist College to confirm or deny whatever is being posted in public. May I go on?
Absolutely,
one more
yeah.
thing? A second thing I wanted to speak to, there are portable washrooms and hand washing facilities at Gleaners and Salvation Army. Salvation Army is currently providing a daily meal, guaranteed. They cannot provide a social climate, unfortunately. People have to go to the door of the building on Pinnacle Street and be given their meal as a takeout. It's an absolutely vital, essential community service. It will continue until Salvation Army announce that it will not be continued. There is a basic food service group committee working to look at ongoing provision of this basic human need. It's an obligation on the part of our community, and we can meet that basic need. And I applaud the people who are working toward the continuation of that one reassurance that no one needs to be hungry. There is a food source available. I would ask that people please support the Salvation Army in this undertaking. It is most important, and we are completely uncertain how long the service will need to be sustained. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Culhane. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try to be quick. I just wanted to kind of follow up with Councillor Culhane and Councillor Williams have addressed. I was at a meeting on Wednesday. There was, it's about community meals programs. There were a lot of different agencies and representatives there on a conference call, and the mayor was at that, and it was at Bridge Street United Church. And just, you know, with COVID-19, we see the need growing. The Salvation Army needs on a daily basis. The Gleaners Food Bank have a cafe on an average morning around 8 o'clock. They have 30 people. This week they've had some days where there's anywhere from 50 to 80. Bridge Street United Church is doing daily takeout meals with the numbers around 80. We know that the Grace Inn, those who stay overnight, 21 there, are left to leave in the morning. And some of the places that they would visit and spend some time throughout the day are closed, whether it was the library, some of the other city facilities, or businesses downtown that they could go and spend some time with. And we talked about at this meeting was the social disconnect for those in our vulnerable sector, and let's not forget the seniors. It can be very lonely, and it can play with their health, both physical and mental health. So I'm hoping that everybody will reach out to someone in the neighborhood that they might know, to give a phone call or send them an email or a text message, because it will go a long way. And I just want to champion Hastings Prince Edward Public Health. Dr. Peter Oglaza and the team, they've been right on top of this. They've never had anything like this before, and it's happening in real time. That's how this is unfolding. They've never had, none of us have had any practice. We saw that from the Premier on Tuesday with the state of emergency at 8:30 in the morning announcing that. And I just want to commend too, and I'm not trying to get in his good books or a better seat at the council table, but the mayor. I've seen the Facebook messages. I see how we're privy to emails sent to city staff. And we see that the voice of calm is there on a regular basis. And I can't speak for every councillor, but around this table, we know exactly what's happening in the city. And I want to thank the mayor for that. Sense of leadership coming through over the last couple of weeks. And we see that with the Prime Minister, and we see that with the Premier. And it's happening in our own backyard. So I commend you under a very stressful time that you're giving that information and remaining calm throughout it all.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Anyone else? All right, motions. Any motion? We don't have any motions today, I'm sorry. Notice of motions. Any notice of motions? Seeing none. Announcements. Anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? Seeing none, I just have a couple to deal with as we deal with our regular business. I'd like to proclaim April as Probus Club Month in the city of Belleville. Probus is an organization of social clubs for retired people. There are many hundreds of Probus clubs throughout Canada, and here in Belleville there are two, the Probus Club of Belleville and the Probus Club of Quinte. During normal times, these Probus clubs hold regular meetings with presentations on topics of interest to the members and organize various outings and activities. With the motto, "Get connected, stay connected," and an emphasis on fellowship and fun, they provide a valuable service to the retired population of Belleville and surrounding areas, particularly those who are looking for friendship with like-minded individuals. And once our situation has passed by, I know that the Probus Club is looking forward to getting their group together again. April is Be a Donor Month in the city of Belleville. Be a Donor Month supports organ and tissue donor registration. With that, I will ask for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2020-71, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on March 20th, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 20th day of March 2020. Moved by Councillor Culhane, second by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Before I ask for the motion of adjournment, I want to make a few comments. The past week has been extremely fast-paced, rapidly changing environment in our city and in our province, in our country, and around the world. And I want to commit that the City of Belleville will continue to communicate with residents, just like all other municipalities and other levels of government are doing, but I want to commend our staff. We are committed to ensure that people have the ability to rely on the City of Belleville and that we are acting in a calm, non-panicked mode, and that we are basing our decisions on science and recommendations from professionals. The City of Belleville follows the recommendations of Hastings Prince Edward Public Health and encourages residents to use them as their resource for ongoing COVID-19 updates and ways to best protect you and your family. I encourage people to visit hpepublichealth.ca. They have a very good website and it is updated all the time, so go back often for more information. Social distancing. In order to decrease transmission of COVID-19 in Hastings and Prince Edward counties, the Public Health Board is recommending that all residents practice social distancing. Social distancing involves taking steps to limit the number of people you come into close contact with. It includes encouraging people to stay at least 2 meters away from each other, about 6 feet. It also encourages the general population to avoid contact with one another by canceling events and other non-essential group gatherings. Not everyone or every business can practice perfect social distancing, but this is a major way to reduce the risk of infectious disease transmission for employees, customers, clients, and service users, and has been proven to be effective in other parts of the world. And I want to commend Council for allowing us to set a good example by practicing social distancing around the table here. And I want to thank the media for scattering themselves in the audience and our city staff for taking these precautions. I encourage everyone, whether they work for the City of Belleville or they work for any other organization, to speak with your supervisor, manager, or employer about the possibility of working from home if at all possible. If you have meetings planned, consider doing them virtually instead of in person. Now, residents can still go outside to take a walk, to go to the park, or to walk their dog. If they need groceries, go to the grocery store. We just recommend that while outside, you make sure to avoid crowds and maintain a distance of 2 meters from those around you. And wash your hands and use sanitizing cleansers. Please be mindful of members of our community who are more vulnerable to COVID-19 than others. We are all in this together. And lastly, I want to express our heartfelt thanks as a council. We've spoken about social distancing and self-isolating, but now I'd like to acknowledge and thank those in our community who are out there every day. They have a commitment to public service and a commitment to us as a community. To our first responders and our healthcare professionals, to those working in our grocery stores and pharmacies, the truck drivers bringing product to us, and transit drivers, plant and factory workers producing the things that we and the world need. There are so many different people who we depend upon, and I am thankful to each of you for all you do for our city. I also want to take a moment to thank our amazing city staff, who have risen to the occasion and are handling the changing circumstances with professionalism and compassion for our fellow employees. We have never dealt with something like this before, and the key is for us to remain calm, stick to what we do best, and remember that this too shall pass. Residents and businesses in Belleville can count on their municipal services. Our council has taken the necessary action to make sure our protective and life-saving services are maintained and will continue. You can continue to rely on our fire, police, EMS. Our water system will continue to provide safe drinking water, and you'll be able to use your sanitary services. Our electricity, gas, telephone, and communication systems will remain in operation. Our public transit system will continue to operate to make sure the people who rely on it to get to work or healthcare or groceries or wherever else they must go, we will maintain this service. And our healthcare system will provide care for those who need it. We are taking the action to ensure it is able to manage this illness and serve everyone. Thanks to all who work in public health and deliver the care we need. My message today is clear. While the world gets through the impact of COVID-19, you can count on the City of Belleville. Our staff, our council, and our people are resilient and are up to this challenge, and whatever is thrown at us in the coming days. We have faced many challenges since 1816, when Belleville first came into being. We met and overcame each challenge presented, and we will overcome this one as well. Thank you to everyone who is doing their part. I have never been so proud of being the mayor of this community as I am now. And with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor? Thank you, and be safe.